Hello guys and welcome back to a brand new video from me, Pickles Park Reviews. Now today I'm reviewing episode 5 of the Daleks animated series, the series finale of this Daleks animated series. Now this Daleks animated series has been going on for 5 weeks now, 5 episodes. I've reviewed all of them and it's been an interesting experiment, I suppose. It's been really interesting to see the Daleks on their own without the Doctor just going about their business. I think the characters of the Daleks have been pretty cool. However, the plots have been a bit of a mixed bag. I think there's been certainly good elements and certainly good ideas in there. However, I think in terms of this trying to construct an arc across all episodes, which is what it's been trying to do, it's really struggled in the last couple of episodes in terms of trying to fulfill everything it's set up. And that's really my thoughts on this episode, because this episode, for me at least, is more about what we don't see and less about what we do, because what we do see is pretty good. However, I just can't ignore what we don't see and the loose threads that are just never explained. After watching it, I was in two minds, because I did think it was partly a nice finale, had some nice stuff, some nice character payoffs, but also there were just some plot threads that were heavily set up that just didn't go anywhere and were just left unresolved, which is obviously frustrating when watching any piece of media. So that's why this was a bit of a mixed bag for me. However, I think I'll go into what I did like. Ultimately, the setup was quite nice. Obviously, in the last episode, you see the mechanoids destroy the entity. Ultimately, they say, you know, look, you led the entity to us. It's killed a load of mechanoids, left Mechanus in ruins. And now you expect us to just let you go off rent-free? No. They're obviously going to fight them, because the mechanoids are rightfully pissed at the Daleks. So they essentially say, go back to Skaro, flee, and get ready, because we're coming. And that's essentially what happens. They go to Skaro, open up this weird bunker, I suppose, of Daleks, which is just conveniently there. And essentially, the mechanoids come in all their numbers, thinking there are only 2 Daleks left in existence, thinking this will be easy to destroy all Daleks. Then it's revealed that they obviously had this bunker full of Daleks. They all fight, and then the mechanoids, some of the mechanoids that don't get destroyed, confront the strategist Dalek and say, listen, you want Dalek victory, but if you get it, who's going to be the victor? Who's going to get the credit? The Emperor, not you. So essentially they manipulate the strategist Dalek into trying to kill the Emperor Dalek, opening up a portal to the entity's dimension so that he can kill the Emperor Dalek with. However, he is the one who's actually manipulated them, and he's put in mechanoid DNA. So essentially, the people that get sucked into the portal isn't the Emperor Dalek, it's actually all of the mechanoids, and they all get sucked into the entity dimension, and it ends with, you know, no mechanoids left. You've got the Daleks saying, you know, we've won, and then you see a broken mechanoid casing and just the entity seemingly there that is somehow travelled back through that dimension and has possessed this broken mechanoid shell, and essentially says, you know, you think you've won, but you haven't, essentially. So ultimately, it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. Whether we'll get a season 2, I don't know. I hope we do, given the unresolved plot threads, given it ends on a cliffhanger. However, there's been some debate whether it does. I've heard some people say that actually leads directly into a comic series, so I don't know what's going on there. However, apparently there were some hints in an interview from the creator that there will be a season 2, so I don't know. To be honest, you're asking the wrong person here if you want to know that. However, it certainly ends on a cliffhanger, so it would be really cool to see where this goes. The plot of this was fairly straightforward, actually. Obviously, I did speculate last week that it was just going to be, you know, action, and I found that a bit boring. It was as I predicted. It was action, 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 and obviously, you know, the action animation isn't amazing. I've spoken a lot about the fire effects, and obviously the mechanoids, a big thing is they have flamethrowers, so ultimately that was always going to be a bit of a iffy sequence, you know, Daleks and mechanoids fighting. It didn't look the best, but it was the best they could do on the budget, I suppose. What I found really interesting though was less of the fights and more of the manipulation from both sides. The mechanoids trying to manipulate the Daleks and the strategist Dalek trying to manipulate the mechanoids and succeeding. That was really interesting. You know, you guys know, if you've watched all of these reviews, how much I love the strategist Dalek, and he was front and centre in this. I love just how slimy he is and how he'll double cross anyone for his own gain. He's really smart, and you're convinced that he's going to get rid of the Emperor Dalek due to jealousy, but he doesn't. He's smart, he double crosses everyone. And that's really interesting. He's great in this, the strategist Dalek. And if anything, I want a second series just to see him, just to hear Nicholas Briggs' vocal delivery of that Dalek, because he's so good. Easily the best thing to come out of this series. The mechanoids are quite fierce as well. You obviously saw how emotional they were, saying, you know, things were beautiful in the last couple of episodes. However, when it all goes down, the mechanoids can be pretty fierce. And I did like that, how they essentially attempt to take on the role of the Daleks by trying to manipulate people, which you haven't really seen with the mechanoids before. That was pretty interesting, and I liked that. Anjil Mahindra is once again brilliant as the mechanoid queen. And I also thought the mechanoid scientist was also nice. That scientist has been a great inclusion alongside the strategist Dalek, and I really like how the naivety of the scientist mechanoid was brought out on full display in this, where just before she's sent off into the big portal for the entity dimension after being double crossed by the strategist Dalek, she essentially says that, you know, she thought that there was going to be a friendship between her and the strategist Dalek, and that was really interesting. And obviously, you know that Daleks don't value friendship, so that was quite cold and quite harsh after all the time they spent in the last 3 episodes. The strategist Dalek doesn't care, it's just another mechanoid to him, and that was pretty interesting as well. The Emperor once again is great with his booming voice, but ultimately he doesn't really do much in this. It's more of just booming speeches. And yeah, it was really nice to see the like double crossing of like all the characters. That was quite cool. I think it executed the wall quite well, even if the animation wasn't the best. There are some plot conveniences, like the fact they conveniently have a bunker of Daleks underneath Skaro. I don't really know why they have that though. I thought the whole point is that their reinforcements were on that other planet in episode 2. I thought that was the point of, that's why they went there to get those reinforcements. Well, I'm pretty sure they can't get to Skaro in episode 2, so maybe that's why they go there. But yeah, it's a bit convenient, but I'll just go with it. However, I think ultimately, in terms of the content in the episode, it was pretty satisfying. It was nice to see the strategist Dalek on display. However, my main concerns and complaints were mainly from what we didn't see, all about the entity. Now, the entity was what was set up in the series as the big bad. We really knew nothing about it. However, as it went on, we learned more and more about it. It came from another dimension and wanted to destroy all the Daleks, and either way to destroy them or turn the Daleks into something different, something better for the universe. And if you remember rightly, it offers a strategist Dalek that chance to lead the Daleks over the Emperor and change the Daleks, and obviously it refuses, but you can see that the strategist Dalek is contemplating it. But it was destroyed last episode, and we really know nothing about it. We don't really know where it really came from, why it wants to destroy the Daleks. Ultimately, it just failed, and to have a time-sensitive entity that knows your every move, I think it was just wasted, to be honest. If we don't get a second season, then it was wasted. It's implied the entity could come back if we get a second season, but I don't know if that's the case. But yeah, if not, it was wasted. Just essentially a stopgap until you could get to the mechanoids, which I think is what the creators really wanted to showcase, Daleks versus mechanoids. And while technically it's quite clever, the Daleks take the entity to Mechanus to try and, you know, 2 birds 1 stone kind of thing. It's interesting, but ultimately I do feel that it was such an interesting concept as the entity. It's been shafted because we still don't really know what it is, why it wants to kill the Daleks. Nothing really comes of that offer. It asked the strategist Dalek. I feel like we really should have got a resolution for the entity. I don't know why this couldn't have maybe been a 20-minute episode, because at the end of the day it's the season finale. They could have pushed the boat out a bit more in that respect, because it's shorter than a lot of the episodes. It's not the shortest one, I don't think, but it was 13 minutes, and I'm pretty sure the second one was 15 minutes, so it's not even the longest episode. Ultimately, I just wish the entity had been wrapped up, because that's just a big dangling plot thread which was focused on in the early episodes, and it's just kind of been chucked by the wayside. And because of how interesting that entity was, it's just really sloppy to have just ignored it. But yes, overall, Daleks, the animated series, what would I make of it? Would I recommend it? Ultimately, I think I would, even though the overarching plot goes a bit nowhere. It has interesting ideas. It brings back the mechanoids, even though it goes nowhere. The entity's an interesting idea. You deal with things like the Daleks' extinction, and most importantly, the Dalek hierarchy and the Dalek manipulation is the biggest thing that you see in this, is Dalek manipulation. You know, Daleks are all good shouting at people and just killing people, but I think it's great when you see the Daleks try and manipulate people and use their actual wits, because we forget that the Daleks are incredibly intelligent, and that's what this series really demonstrates in both the Emperor and especially the Stratus Dalek, who I will watch this series just for him alone, because he's so good. Nicholas Briggs gives such a good vocal delivery. Nicholas Briggs is the unsung hero of this whole series. He essentially carries it. He voices so many Daleks, all unique, and he does such a good job. I think it's really interesting to see the Daleks away from the Doctor, away from the main show of Doctor Who, to see what they would just do on their own and how they deal with threats when the Doctor's not around. I think that was particularly interesting. And I think it certainly characterises the Daleks brilliantly, it characterises the mechanoids brilliantly, and it was a really interesting experiment. As I said before, this is my first delving into Time Lord Victorious, and I really enjoyed it. Just interesting to see the Daleks on their own, and yeah, I think if there's one thing it done right, it was the characterisation of the Daleks, and the manipulative side of the Daleks, the intelligence of the Daleks, which this series done so well. As I said, plot-wise, it can be a bit messy, but I think as an experiment, just to see the Daleks on their own, it was actually really enjoyable, and I would recommend it. Yes, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like, drop a sub, and hit that notification bell to stay notified for all my latest videos. What did you think of Daleks Episode 5, the finale, and Daleks as a whole? What did you think of this series? Did you like it? Did you not? Whatever, drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd be really interested to hear it. Thank you guys for watching, and of course, a goodbye.